Cyril here. Consider this a remaster of my various sequel trilogy rants. The Rise of Skywalker came out in December 2019. That thing came out before this thing decided to shut down the whole world because it went on a murderous rampage. However, many fans are still very critical of the film, myself included. To give the movie some benefit of the doubt, nobody seemed to have a unified vision. No one at Disney, no one at Lucasfilm, nobody. Because you know for a fact, as much as you can hate the prequel trilogy or even the original trilogy, they still had a mostly cohesive vision. Yes, Lucas did right by the seat of his pants for several things, but, well, you know who the good guys are and what the themes are. For instance, the original trilogy, the Republic had long been overthrown, now the Empire is in full control. The Empire rules through terror, and the Republic wants to be restored by the scrappy rebels. I mean, it's in the opening crawl, and the Empire employs a planet killer. And while you can't do the prequel-style Senate scenes because this was made in the late 70s, early 80s, you still had some unifying idea, even if that idea was basic as rebels good, Empire bad, restore democracy good. Meanwhile, the prequel trilogy, you had to extend focus over a longer period of time, yet you still had a unifying theme to tie everything together. The Galactic Senate under Chancellor Finis Valorum was collapsing under the weight of endemic corruption way bigger than just one administration could possibly handle. The Separatist crisis under Palpatine's tenure as Chancellor sees this crisis be used as a means of grabbing power for the office of the Chancellor, and ultimately the office of the Chancellor became the office of the Emperor by Revenge of the Sith. There really is no grand unifying narrative with the sequel trilogy except Rey's parentage, except that's not really a grand unifying narrative. It's more like several people playing tug-of-war over, okay, we want to get the original trilogy's vibes except for now. So the political context of this is plain confusing because it's so non-existent. Wars always need some level of political context to justify their existence, especially in storytelling where storytelling needs to make more sense than reality. The Rebel Alliance wants to restore the Republic, again, against the Empire. Simple, but it works. Political corruption rotting away a democracy until it becomes an empire. Complicated, and it's also told in a frustrating way. But the issue of how it's told is different from the issue of what the point was. The First Order Resistance conflict is the First Order Resistance conflict. What exactly is the Resistance? We know they're a proxy group for the New Republic, but at the same time, they're like smaller and weaker than the original Rebel Alliance. It's difficult to see how much of a threat they are to the First Order because the odds are so comically lopsided in favor of the First Order that it is not funny. There's also the fact that this is a sequel and we blow up the New Republic in the first part of the trilogy. So, yeah. How exactly do we know the fruits of the labor of this original trilogy when the sequel trilogy blows it up without exploring much of it at all? We just wanted a strong Empire and scrappy Rebel Alliance, again, except in a new coat of paint, and it's ridiculous. Now, let's get away from what the Rise of Skywalker had to fight against and see what it did right, what it did wrong, and everything in between. We open with our first issue. No, it's not that we had to see the dead speaking from a Fortnite event. I'm talking about making Palpatine the main villain of the trilogy. See, there always needs to be a sense of escalation with villains, but that escalation needs to feel natural and structured in terms of a story. Tarkin, high-ranking official, government/military, commanded the Death Star, presided over a meeting of a bunch of officials who were also in the armed forces. Vader, who was only the main antagonist of Empire Strikes Back, but he had someone to answer to, the Emperor. It's only natural that in Return of the Jedi, the Emperor would take center stage, because, after all, Vader answers to him. Whereas in the prequel trilogy, Palpatine was an active threat throughout the entire trilogy, sitting in the background, making backdoor dealings and manipulations. You don't get that setup with the sequels. In fact, the sequels run counter to the narrative already set up. First we have Snoke. Then he got killed off by Kylo Ren, which, to the sequel trilogy's credit, it's a good idea. Kylo could do what Vader could not and became the Master, became the supreme leader of the First Order. We just had a trilogy where Palpatine played everyone like a fiddle. This was a good subversion. Never had we on the big screen seen the apprentice become the Master until now. Too bad they threw that away in this film. On Mustafar, yes, this is Mustafar. Kylo Ren is cutting his way through the locals as he makes his way towards Vader's castle. What's he looking for? Something called a Sith Wayfinder. Because the Sith Wayfinder, well, let's get over the Mustafar thing first. Why does Mustafar look like this? Watch player read supplementary materials. That's going to be a problem going on, but that's not here nor there. The Sith Wayfinder leads him to Exegol, the ancient homeworld of the Sith. A world of perpetual sandstorms which let out a ton of lightning. I know the Sith are Darksiders and all, but I feel like Exegol could be way more visually interesting other than flashes of lightning reveals giant statues and citadels. Imagine a world that was a Sith-worshipping version of Coruscant, not unlike Dromund Kaas from the Knights of the Old Republic games. I mean, this feels so hollow, empty, and just simply doesn't feel grand as the homeworld of the Sith. This feels like underground villains' meth lab, if anything. Oh, and Snoke is a clone and Palpatine planned this all out. Movie, you can't drop a reveal like this. If you're going to reveal something like this, it should make the audience be like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Instead, this goes, I have a few questions. So Kylo Ren finds Palpatine, who is attached to a life support apparatus, and Kylo Ren is offered something from Palpatine, a new empire. This is where we see the Sith Eternal Fleet. Yep, Palpatine is going to give all this to Kylo Ren so long as he kills Rey. Kylo goes through with this because physics. Now had Kylo gone, I already did what Vader could not. I probably would be a lot more positive about this. I just simply don't see the Kylo Ren at the end of The Last Jedi going, cool, I'm an apprentice again. Now, if Kylo was running the First Order while Palpatine's Sith Eternal was running a counter First Order to him as parallel main antagonist, this I could see working. Meanwhile, on the Millennium Falcon, Finn and Poe get a message from a spy. The First Order differential equations are on their trail, but since the last film established hyperspace tracking as a thing, they decide to get rid of them by doing as many jumps as possible, each one making more of the First Order lose them. Rey is training, having repaired the lightsaber from the end of the last film, and because of this Force bond business, Kylo and Rey can cause each other trauma and make each other feel emotions between planets. The Resistance somehow has gotten their hands on the Tantive V4 and are using it as their base of operations. They are not exactly up to full strength. There's 100 people, and they can all fit into that ship. The Falcon returns and is on fire, and I think this is the first major interaction between Poe and Rey in the entire trilogy. After some more bickering, we get to the meme. Say it with me, people. Somehow Palpatine returned. In the decade since his demise, the Emperor has built a massive fleet with a tremendous force. In 16 hours, the fleet will take off and attack all the free worlds. To which I say, I'm sorry, what free worlds? What we've been doing this entire trilogy is floundering about on the fringes of the galaxy. I mean, we're even going further into the fringes of the galaxy with the Sith homeworld of Exegol. Last movie, we literally had everyone is too afraid of the First Order. So, let me get this straight. Free worlds somehow are going to be attacked by Palpatine, and we're supposed to give a crap because they have been non-entities, and the only time they've ever been an entity is when the First Order attacks the Resistance put out a call for help, and they're all too afraid. No, this isn't how it works. So, Rey knows how to get to Exegol. It's in one of the sacred Jedi texts. Rey tells Leia they'll need a Sith Wayfinder. The heroes go off to find the Wayfinder because Luke was also hunting for the Wayfinder at one point, and the trail went cold. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren, now repairing his mask because heaven forbid we let the past die, meets with the hierarchs of the First Order. Some members of the First Order hierarchy are a bit uneasy with the whole, Sith cult on Exegol thing, but General Pride here says, that's of no concern. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Of course, Kylo needs to outdo Vader by choking a guy who questions the gift fleet. So Kylo intends to find Rey while everyone else tends to do what they're supposed to. Meanwhile, we make it to Pasaana. Instead of paying the Tunisian government, we're paying the Jordanian government now. Do I need to say what's wrong here? In the concept art, Pasaana was a marsh world. Here, we get another desert world. The worlds of the sequel trilogy are completely devoid of creativity. The original trilogy had to put up with the technical limitations of the 70s and 80s, but we just got out of a trilogy that at least tried to be creative with the worlds. I mean, we had an ocean world on Camino, the Clone Factory, cold and sterile. Focused much less on angles and more on curves, and tubes, and transparencies. This is contrasted with Geonosis, a desert world, much more angular, with expansive droid factories with welding sparks flying everywhere. Clones, the soldiers for the Republic, are born in watery tubes, or at least it appears watery. Geonosis, the foundry for the Separatist, fire from welding. Here, the fire and the water mix to create a mist, or a ruse, for they both serve the same employer, Palpatine. Storytelling details aside, there's also the personality of the worlds on a visual level that's lacking. Volusia, dangerous jungle world, far more creative than the sequel trilogy where we get Agent Kloss. I'll give Crate some credit for being more than Discount Hoth because at least the salt and symbolic blood from the salt breaking looks visually interesting in some way. Disney, I know you're trying to harken back to the days of the 80s, but you don't need to import the world design philosophy. We can do better. Somehow, desert planet but littered with broken ship parts and another desert planet. How is it that the prequel trilogy can make Geonosis and Tatooine look visually distinct, and they're both desert worlds? How? During the festival, we get this Force bond call between Rey and Kylo, and he manages to warp space and sees the beads around her neck and have a trooper analyze it. Kylo Ren is headed to Pasaana. First Order local troops find them, which leads him into getting shot by this guy, Lando. The infamous They Fly Now sequence during a chase, and after stumbling into quicksand, they end up in a cave, and Rey finds a Sith dagger inscribed with the location of the Wayfinder, written in the language that C-3PO isn't permitted to read, the ancient runic language of the Sith. After healing a giant sand creature, Rey heads off to confront Kylo Ren while the rest of the group goes to Ochi's ship. Also, the Knights of Ren are here, and they capture Chewbacca. After cutting down Kylo's ship, Rey and Kylo get into a struggle over the ship. Rey wants to pull it down because, Chewbacca's on there. Kylo wants to break her grip and let the ship return. Rey and Kylo get into this struggle, and Rey, in her anger, unleashes Force lightning. And it looks like she blew up Chewbacca. Rey is clearly shaken by what's happened, and what's worse is that she has had a vision of her on the throne of the Sith. Hux reports to his superior, Allegiant General Pride, and he has a prisoner. Well, that was pointless. I guess shock value exists, but this is stupid shock value and not useful shock value. Also, Chewbacca had the dagger, meaning that C-3PO had to get the inscription from his memory banks. Remember, he can remember this, he just can't translate it because it's forbidden by the Senate. They head to Kijimi, where the First Order is brutally occupying the planet. They run into Zori, who reveals that Poe used to be a spice runner. I could write a monologue about how the Latin American actor is the one playing a former drug dealer, but this is dumb enough as is, and I've embraced the spirit of laziness. It's stupid. I'm moving on. Babu Frick is about to hack C-3PO's memory and get him to translate the inscription on the dagger, but that would wipe the memory. Yeah, if you think, oh, they probably have a backup of it somewhere, they do. Once the process goes down, we are told the Emperor's vault on the second Death Star is where the Wayfinder is. Boarding Kylo's ship, they find Chewbacca, free him, retrieve the dagger, get a teleporting fight scene, can't really make up for the fact that Hux is revealed to be the spy. Okay. This is stupid. Dude, you destroyed Hosnian Prime and the entire Hosnian system. If the Resistance wins, your neck gets shoved in the Electro Guillotine. Also introduced in Star Wars The Clone Wars. I don't care if you win is a stupid sentiment. You simply can't coup Kylo Ren like a normal person? Yeah, Rey is Palpatine's grandchild if you haven't seen it already. Oh, the granddaughter of the big bad villain. Too bad this isn't interesting. Hux dies unceremoniously because he is an idiot. The Falcon lands on one of the moons of Endor. In possibly one of the dumbest moves in this franchise's history, we see Rey match up the Sith dagger with the rubble of the Death Star to locate the Wayfinder. You know how stupid this is? When this scene first leaked, everyone called it fake. A leaker came out, gave a summary, and everyone says, haha, this is too stupid to be real. Fake. It was real. Also, they decide to meet some more defected First Order stormtroopers. Rey decides to charge in head first to the wreck while everyone else is trying to repair the Falcon. So she makes it to the vault, grabs the Wayfinder, gets jumped by a vision of her being Darth Rey, or maybe it's a version of her that's just Palpatine. Oh boy. Palpatine possessing Rey is probably the intention they went with, but who cares at this point? Kylo breaks the Wayfinder, fight ensues, Leia dies calling out to her son, Rey stabs and heals Kylo, steals his ship, one pep talk from Han later, Kylo Ren is dead, welcome back Ben Solo. So General Pride takes over as Supreme Leader of the First Order, and now he's going to be leading everything. Kijimi, yeah, that snowy world where they met Zori and Babu Frick, is blasted to smithereens, and it's barely a footnote. I think you can cut the scene and have a same emotional reaction because there's not much to care about with Kijimi. I know the viewer is familiar with Kijimi because we were there, but as a political level in universe, why couldn't Palpatine have just destroyed something more important or more likely to be a blip on people's radar across the galaxy? Yes, blowing up a planet makes sense to strike fear in people's hearts, but if you really wanted to strike fear, why didn't you just blow up something like Kashyyyk or Raxus, which was the homeworld of the Separatist parliaments? I feel like blowing one of those up sends a stronger statement. This droid is Dio, and Dio apparently knows about Ochi and Exegol, and it turns out he knew Rey was a Palpatine because Ochi was sent to go retrieve Rey many years ago. Rey goes off to self-exile onto Octo, only for Luke to tell her to knock it the hell off. Rey gets Leia's lightsaber. Rey decides to head to Exegol using Luke's waterlogged X-Wing. She uses signals from the X-Wing to carve a path towards Exegol for the Resistance. Meanwhile, the Sith Eternal is run by the dumbest engineers in the entire universe. So not only do they have, one signaling platform that allows them to simply leave Exegol, but also have a massive weakness in that a one-man starfighter could blow up the entire ship because the main cannon that's used to bust planets is connected to the main reactor. Now, if there were a variety of ships, maybe some Raider-class corvettes that can be used to block out these, invading enemies, I could understand that. But no, let's go to Exegol. The Resistance is met with heavy resistance, and I have been waiting to use that line for a long time. Rey goes to confront the Emperor, and somehow this battle is less dynamic than the one in Rogue One, Revenge of the Sith's opening, and the final battle of Return of the Jedi. How? Return of the Jedi was made in the 80s. Technology has gotten better. You could do so much better. The only interesting part is the cavalry charge on a ship. And as stupid as Palpatine wanting Rey to strike him down with all her hatred so he can possess her, I do like how Luke was saved by his father. The only family you have here is me. That's such a creepy delivery, and I love it. The Resistance is doing poorly. Shocker. Ben arrives, and Rey hands him a lightsaber through their portal connection, and the Knights of Ren go down. Rey deals with the Sovereign Protectors. They're never called Sovereign Protectors in the movie, but they're just dealt with. And Palpatine forced vampires as enemies in order to restore himself. Everything is going to hell, and then the Citizens' Fleet arrives. This is not an awesome moment of the cavalry arriving. It's a terribly blocked fight in every single aspect of the word. Cockpit shot, fleet shot, see the fighters zip past capital ships that blow up. There is nothing interesting here. Especially since the self-destruct button is the cannon, meaning that we get repetitive shots of just ships blowing up because of the cannons being destroyed. Back to Palpatine. He throws Ben Solo into a chasm. Why does he throw him into a chasm? Because Vader threw Palpatine down a reactor shaft, so Vader's not here right now. So Palpatine needs to grab Ben, who is the last living Skywalker, and throw him down a bottomless pit just for the pettiness. That feels so in character, and I love it. Now that the Citizens' Fleet is here, Palpatine has been restored, so he blasts them all, only for Rey to kill him by reflecting his Force lightning back at him. That was anticlimactic. I felt like that was done in under a minute. Allegiant General Pride gets blown up. Ben dies restoring Rey. Galaxy liberated. Rey Skywalker. The end. The Rise of Skywalker is the weakest film in this trilogy because it's the one that is overtly structurally unsound. I feel like J.J. Abrams wanted to take his idea of what's happened in episodes, his version of episodes 8 and 9, and then cram them into one movie. Except all the lore isn't there. They clearly did not think out of an actual story. We spend a good deal of the movie in a fetch quest with enough detours that has to be grating on the budget. Fetch quests aren't inherently bad, but when you are on a timer, wasting time is not in your best interest. Obviously that's redundant, but apparently this movie wastes a ton of time. To get to Exegol, you need a Sith Wayfinder. Makes sense. Luke was on his way to find one. Makes sense. Go to the last place he went. Basana, where they find something that belonged to the assassin that Luke was chasing. Okay, so far so good. However, Chewbacca had the dagger, got captured, and apparently got blown up. and the fake-out was completely unnecessary. But C-3PO remembers the inscription on the dagger, so they find a hacker in order to get the location out of the dagger. But they go to Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer anyways and take the dagger and rescue Chewbacca. Because... I get it. I get they had to have Chewbacca do something, but this is the best they could come up with? Guys, what's wrong with the whole Kylo gets the dagger on Pisana somehow? Maybe Rey loses it in a duel, maybe it causes a triggering flashback to her, and she decides to drop it. C-3PO remembers the inscription on the dagger, but he needs to be hacked to translate it. It's a race against the clock now. The Sith Wayfinder is on Endor, well, the forest moon of Endor, not the forest moon of Endor, one of the other moons of Endor, where they go to that moon to beat Kylo Ren to the Sith Wayfinder. That would save them a lot of time, because you did a lot of pointless meandering on Kijimi. You could spend the time you just earned back developing your characters, not having them rush from one place to another. You really could have dealt the reveal about Rey's lineage during the Death Star 2 scenes, and nothing really would change. What else can I scream about? The space battle at the end of the movie pales in comparison to Rogue One, which has a much smaller scale, but has a much larger feel to it. Much more memorable maneuvers are pulled, such as members of Blue Squadron failing to make it through the shield gate. Fighters are zipping through the shield gate's superstructure in order to avoid getting shot out of the space, I guess. It generally feels like the rebels were on the back foot and needed to get clever to smash through their enemies. It's really just 2 Star Destroyers and the shield gate, but those are it for their enemies. It feels really desperate, even though the rebels and the Empire are much smaller than whatever this was at the end of the movie. It's also bad when you find things that happened decades before this movie. Okay, it wasn't even 15 years, but you get the idea. I mean, Revenge of the Sith had Pierce ship fighting during the opening battle of Coruscant. Meanwhile, the Citizens Fleet arrives, and you fully expect to see some direct combat by said ships against the First Order ships. It's been a long time since we saw capital ships directly fight each other, since 2005. Maybe 2008. I have to go rewatch the Clone Wars pilot. But at the same time, wouldn't it be neat to see if a Venator and a Providence came up against a First Order Zyston, well, a Sith Eternal Zyston, fighting it? They were once played by Palpatine, and now they are going against him. It's like poetry. It rhymes. Speaking of poetry, we established that Finn is a former First Order Stormtrooper, and introduce more defected stormtroopers. So, do we get anything about the ethics of shooting the children who were raised into this, who were taken from their homes and forced to fight and brainwashed into this system? Nope. Cody from Alternate History Hub put it this way: we could have ended with the saga with the troopers helping the Jedi once more. Other people said, a reverse Order 66, where the First Order / Final Order gets Order 66th. You could even call it Order 99 to reference Clone Trooper 99, in my opinion. So, why didn't we get this? I feel like everyone here is so wasted. Finn is just the woohoo guy, or yelling Rey. Poe is revealed to be a former drug dealer, and Rey's arc about her parentage isn't compelling. I feel like you just had, squiggles on a board, because you know how things are supposed to escalate and then de-escalate? Yeah, it's sort of like taking shots in the dark, random squiggles on the board because someone blindfolded and spun you. It feels like the writers were fist-fighting each other. Kylo Ren really should have been the main villain here. He feels so lackluster going through the motions. Why is he doing Palpatine's bidding again? Palpatine. He's there to spout memes. General Pride. At least he has, as what the kids are saying, aura. Ship design is also lazy as hell. The Zeiston-class Star Destroyer is just the Rogue One model of the Imperial One-class Star Destroyer, scaled up. Except you just make everything on the inside cavernous ballroom-like and make the controls ginormous because you just use the size-up tool, no implications of anything. You don't care about the implications of, hey, maybe if we use just a size-up tool, it makes everything warp and a lot of needlessly empty space. No, no, no. Who cares? We're just doing this and welding a gun to it and calling it a day. The Rise of Skywalker does not feel like the finale of the Skywalker saga. It doesn't even feel like the finale of a trilogy. What it does feel like is a high school student who has had weeks to write a paper decides to procrastinate on that paper, and then having a mini panic attack 3 nights before, decides to both procrastinate more and then try to cram as much information with multiple all-nighters. Except during those multiple all-nighters, he ends up just screwing things up because he did not think through the implications of what he was writing. Some might say that, oh, the questions that you have just mean the movie is trying to be deep. No, the movie's not trying to be deep. It just didn't think through any of the plot points. The pacing is uneven. It's lightning fast, yet it meanders. And it wastes so much time on bridges to nowhere. It establishes themes built on themes that are set up, but they go nowhere. Characters sort of just shrug and accept things, which you do need that for a film to work, but this one is just, okay, why? Just, why are you doing this? Those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.